Good morning, my wonderful, wonderful friends. Roger, Mudfossil University, and today we're going to just get right deep into it. That is what's called the Painted Dunes in California. And what do you see here? I mean, it looks fake. It looks like somebody made a little landscape and stuck a little fake-looking trees in there. I mean, it just doesn't even look real. But it is real, and it is biology. That's not just dirt and rocks and painted, looks like that for no reason at all. And I'll show you exactly what it is. It's heart tissue. You see that? These are these cardiac muscle fiber nuclei, and that's what these are. Now, this was from some heart surgery. They were looking into some myocardial problems. And anyway, this just shows how they heal back up. But that's what this is. These aren't healed. This is a heart. Now, I bought a real fancy microscope to do tests on these blood cells because I have giants. And I have tons of blood. I have blood from coming out of my ears from all kinds of different things. So I figured, well, our size blood is a certain size, the cells, and the other size blood should be bigger. I mean, if they're big, gigantic creatures should be bigger. I didn't find that. I went through my microscope. I'll show you. I got a little fancy microscope here, but it just didn't help me. But I only am looking at creatures that were not like something like this. I have no blood from this. I have no blood from Blood Falls. I have no blood from all of these other places. I'll show you in a second. But I would like to see, are those blood cells larger? I don't know if they are or not. I know that the blood in my giants, and I have one that's approximately 160, 180 feet tall, if it was anatomically exactly like us, and I believe they were. And that blood, I can't tell any real difference, but I didn't do a serious investigation where I don't just have the tools to do that. All I did was take a quick examination. I looked and I said, they look pretty much similar size. I went on from there. And here's what I get. You see this microscope over here? This one here, you can really see deep down inside. And you can see these slides, you know, what is really in the very deep details, like this. But to actually measure blood cells, that I just can't do. And again, I don't have blood cells from this, but I don't see big plates. You'd think there would be like this big around plates of blood cells, because look at the size of the damn thing. But I don't think you were going to find that, which is kind of interesting, you know. I always equate, well, if the thing is bigger, everything was bigger. Well, maybe not the blood. I don't know. Okay, as you probably know by now, my giants that I have are quite large. Close to 160, 180 feet tall is the biggest one I have here on my property. But the earth is literally constructed of creatures, and that's what it says in all the ancient texts. I'm going to read you some of the ancient texts. You won't believe it, but it's true. Now, this is tendon, and in us, these tiny little fibrils are about the size of basically maybe a little bit bigger than a human hair, and that's what we're looking at here. Only this is the earth, and the earth is created from creatures. There was giants in the earth in those days, and then after that there was more giants when the daughters of man and the angels made it, is what they say. Now, I can't testify to that. I don't know. All I can say is what I see is what I see. You make your own determination what you see. But I see giants in the earth. Now, I have a batch of giants, but the ones I had DNA tested was this one, this is the fingertip, and it's a thumb. And that is the fingernail, and that is where the bumper pad bumps up against the next bone. That's the fingernail, 3 feet long now. And I had this DNA certified, and I will show you the blood actually in it. Now, on top of that, the fingerprints were absolutely flawless. And my finger is the same size as one ridge, fingerprint ridge. This is called grip skin. And I understand the process. It's nucleophilic substitution. I understand everything about this now. There is no more mystery. You come to me, I can explain virtually anything you see on the Earth. Because it's all biology. You have to understand it from a biological perspective, not from a dirt and dust and sediment this and sediment that. Let me show you something. I'll show you muscle that is here in my shop, and then muscle that was from the giants in the earth. All right, this has been laying around for about 10 years, so it's very dried out. But that was where the bone implanted here. And this is the tendon, and then it runs into the muscle. And these are the muscle bundles that break off. They're called abrupt transitions. Abrupt transition, abrupt transition. And then there's other abrupt transitions where it transfers from mineralized into real muscle. But this was the embedded part. And these are little tendon straps and fibrils. Now, this thing is heavy. This was the original picture when I first took it out of the ground. And it still had a lot of the color in there, the blood and the, you could see the different layering of the muscles and how they interweave. And that is, you see this, these are the abrupt transition as they break and so forth. And that's the muscle where the tendon locks into the muscle and the tendon locks into the bone. This is the glue that locks the tendon into the bone, and they break flat as a pancake across that transition. Now, let me show you what the earth has. The giants that were in the earth in those days are this. You see that? That's exactly what I just showed you. This is not sedimentation. It went this way, and then it went that way, and then it went this way, and then a layer, and then a layer. That's insane. Absolutely insane. Plus, this is the chemistry of biology, of flesh. That's the bloody stuff. And this is the loose connective tissue, and the mud runs out of it. And that's why you see all the red stuff at the bottom, because that's the really weak part that runs out, and the loose connective tissue stays. That's what we're looking at right there. All right, so let's just wrap up the blood portion of this. I decided that it may not, the blood cells of the giants may be exactly the same as our blood cells, because all they're doing is taking on gases. The gas did not change the size of its molecule, so these can only absorb so much. I mean, they're not going to blow up like gigantic balloons in the guy's blood, I don't think. They can only, because their job is to take in, they contain the hemoglobin. It imparts the red color to blood and transports oxygen and carbon dioxide to and from the tissues. Now, so the main job of these little bitty red bits are to attach to oxygen and then release that oxygen into the tissues that need it and absorb carbon dioxide. So they're only working with gases. There's no, in other words, what I'm getting at is they may not be any different than the size of a 2-mile tall giant or a 5-foot tall person. It might be exactly the same size. And that's what I found in the sizes of the ones I had. Again, I couldn't be certain of that, because I really don't have that fine of a measurement to look at it. But when you look at the giants that I'm looking at here on the earth that are literally miles and miles and miles in dimensions, and you would expect them to look like frisbees or big platters or something, but I don't necessarily see that, although I haven't been to those places to look at it. They might be there. I don't know. This is what needs to be looked at. And fossil fuels are basically almost entirely made of blood. And the only reason they are different types of fossil fuels is the depth in the earth that they are found. And they create fossil fuels, oil, natural gas, coal, from these determined by the type of fossil, the amount of heat, and the amount of pressure. The type you start with, blood or trees or whatever it was to start with, or a liver or heart or a kidney, and then as you pressurize it and push it harder and harder and harder and deeper in the earth, it turns it to more and more vaporized. And by the time you get, like, I think it's 300 miles down, something like that, you get to actual actual natural gas, because it's so forced it ends up being hydrocarbons, which are the smallest little molecules of these petrochemicals. All right, here's right here. There's three main fossil fuels: coal, petroleum, natural gas. Well, coal's cheap and it's all over the place, but it releases a lot of pollutants because it's a dense product that has not refined. Then it goes on, but here's the main part I want to talk to you about. Fossil fuels are formed underground, trapped in deposits, surrounded by layers of rock. They're bodies that have organs in them that are deteriorating, basically. Coal beds typically lie only 200 to 300 feet below the surface. They're right on the surface. They are solidified layers of basically flesh. Oil and natural gas deposits, typically a mile or two down, they are crushed and forced to release a lot of the stuff down into their tiny molecules. And the deepest oil and gas wells have reached more than 6 miles below the surface. That's where you're going to find gas, actual gases, and real refined stuff, because it's so crushed that its molecular form has changed to hydrocarbons from complex carbon molecules down to very simple carbon molecules attached primarily to hydrogen. All right, carbon has 4 attachment spots, and each one of them can attach to a carbon. And that's what happens as the carbon gets forced to crush itself and push all of the big molecules out. The little molecules attached, those are the hydrogens. So you end up with hydrocarbons, methanes, gases, and so forth. Okay, in a second we're going to come to the creation story, which was written basically by Hesiod and then summarized by Ovid up till the time of Julius Caesar. So he wrote of all the stories that were written, from the first stories that were in the Greek mythology, basically, up to the time of Julius Caesar, was right around the time of Christ, in that area. Now, let's look at what Jesus Christ had to say. Because was he a real guy? What was the story with Jesus Christ? Was he a big shot like he was supposed to be? Or he was just a regular guy pretending to be a big shot? Well, I don't know. But I can tell you what, he knew about the earth, and here's why I can say that. All right, here's why I say Jesus knew about the earth being a body and a creature and so forth. The Nag Hammadi library texts were found very recently, in I think 1945. I think it was like 1945. Now, here's the key. It says the contents of the codices were written in the Coptic language. The best known is probably the Gospel of Thomas. Now, I have that right here, the Gospel of Thomas. And I'm looking at it thinking, well, let's see what's in here. And it says, this was supposedly written by Doubting Thomas, who was, he was one of Jesus' disciples, and he was basically his scribe and wrote down the secret sayings. It says, these are the secret sayings a living Jesus spoke, and Didymus Judas Thomas recorded. This was when Jesus was alive, and he was saying things that nobody could understand, because he was talking in riddles, basically. And he said some things that were just over the edge, like number 80 and 56. Number 6, I got to look and see what that is. But he says, whoever discovers an interpretation of these sayings will not taste death. Those who seek should not stop seeking until they find. When they find, they will be disturbed. When they are disturbed, they will marvel and will reign over all. After they have reigned, they will rest. Number 6 is one. Well, Jesus says, don't lie and don't do what you hate, because all things are disclosed before heaven. After all, there is nothing hidden that will not be revealed, nothing covered up that will remain undisclosed. And that's the Mudfossil discovery. Now, I was trying to figure out all these things, so I'd like to figure them out. Now, number 80 and 56. Let's find 56. This is where he says the earth is a body and the earth is a corpse. Here's 56. 56. Jesus said, whoever has come to know the world has discovered a carcass. And whoever has discovered a carcass, of that person the world is not worthy. Well, I don't know about that. We are discovering carcasses. Here's number 80. And we are also discovering bodies. Jesus said, whoever has come to know the world has discovered the body. Whoever discovered the body, of that one the world is not worthy. Now, there's some sayings in here I cannot figure out. I'm going to tell you something. There's just some very, 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 very strange stuff. But everything now is strange. So what you have to do is start over. Get yourself a whole new idea of looking at everything from the start again. Now, does that dismiss Jesus? No, it validates Jesus in my book. He's the one that understood all this stuff. He's the one making these crazy statements nobody else understood. And I understand him now, and I think he's spot on, and I think he was the son of the real God. When we go back to Ovid, it'll talk about how they created from chaos. They created almost identical to what the Bible says, and that was 800 years before they wrote the Bible. So to me, the Bible is based on Hesiod and the actual gods that were here and had a dispute among the gods. Is what happened. I want to go through Hesiod, which is written by Ovid now, and I will discuss what I see the statements he makes as what the statements in the Bible indicate, and then what can I draw from the earth and from the planets and from the solar system, because it talks about all that stuff, and light and energy and everything. So we're going to go through everything. Now, I probably should make it a whole nother video, and I think I will. I think I'll end it right now with this. But Hesiod wrote basically the same thing was written in the Bible about the chaos and about the, dividing the light from the light and the earth, the waters from the waters, and all of that business. And I guess we'll just have to go through it and see what we can pick out of it. All right, I love you. Let's figure it out. Okay, I think I should just give you a little taste of what's to come. This is the Metamorphosis, and it's about transformations of actual bodies of creatures into the landscape. That's basically the first words in the book. Now, Jade Vine is the presenter, the channel here, and it says, one of the monumental works of Western literature, Metamorphosis is a staggering compilation of myths involving transformations that span from the beginning of time to the present Roman age. That's when Ovid wrote this, and basically he based it on Hesiod, as I said before. Now, let's just take a minute or two this is absolutely fabulous. It's extremely engaging to me. Some people won't find it that way, but I do. Here goes.
Before the earth and the sea and the all-encompassing heaven came into being, the whole of nature displayed but a single face, which men have called chaos, a crude, unstructured mass, nothing but weight without motion, a general conglomeration of matter composed of disparate, incompatible elements. No Titan the sun god was present to cast his rays on the universe, nor Phoebe the moon to replenish her horns and grow to her fullness. No earth suspended in equilibrium, wrapped in its folding mantle of air, nor Amphitrite, the goddess of ocean, to stretch her sinuous arms all around the earth's long coastline. Although the land and the sea and the sky were involved in the great mass, no one could stand on the land or swim in the waves of the sea, and the sky had no light. None of the elements kept its shape, and all were in conflict inside one body.
All right, this is where I come to the point where I say, here's where we got problems with the gods. Each one of these was apparently a god on their own that ran the skies, that ran the oceans, that ran this and that, and they were in total conflict. Now comes the god that was the God that I want to find, who was the loving God, who was the coordinator of our universe. And here's where he steps in.
The cold with the hot, the wet with the dry, the soft with the hard, and weight with the weightless. The God who is nature was kinder, and brought this dispute to a
There you go. The God that was nature was kinder. All right? It was kinder. This is the loving God.
settlement. He severed the earth from the sky, and he parted the sea from the land. He separated translucent space from the cloudier atmosphere. He disentangled the elements so as to set them free from the heap of darkness, then gave them their separate places and tied them down in a peaceful concordance.
Peaceful concordance. Now I'm going to stop it right here because this gets extremely deep. It's an hour long, but he also, the same God, this God of nature, this loving God, said, "Thou shalt not kill, and thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself."